Hello and welcome to an episode of Historically Marked. I am Jason and this is another Historic National Road edition, and I'm in Ohio, the Buckeye State, and in this episode I'll be visiting at least 3 towns and cities along the National Road. I'm just coming out of Columbus, Ohio, the capital and the largest city, and now I'm going back into the small town by town zone, starting with Etna, which has over 1,200 people. So there's a marker here. Let's get started. Here we go. So here is the city park, I imagine. Now, if you are traveling the National Road, I highly recommend turning on Pike Road, which is this. Unfortunately, there are no signs that point to it, but I learned the hard way, because if you're going to go straight on US 40, it's literally going to bypass the town like this. You know what I'm saying? Go Pike Road, which is that. That is Etna City Hall. And here is the historical marker about the oddly named town of Etna. Is it named after somebody? Let's find out. Okay. Etna Township was formed from Harrison and Lima Townships in 1833. The village of Etna lies in the middle of the township from which it derives its name. Etna was laid out by Lyman Terrell, formerly from Vermont, in 1832, with lots selling for $3 to $5 each. Terrell first called the village Carthage, but subsequently learned from West Point graduates surveying the National Road that the site of his town was the highest point between Jacksontown and Columbus. He then decided to call it Etna after the volcano, Mount Etna, on the island of Sicily in Italy. Okay, kind of random. The most important event in the history and formation of Etna Township and Etna was the building of the National Road, known formally as the Pike and officially as the Cumberland Road and US Route 40. In 1834, a cholera epidemic sweeping along the National Road nearly depopulated the town. Cholera is an acute, severe infectious disease resulting in profound intestinal pain, dehydration, and death in many instances. And then down here it talks about some of the businesses that were in here in Etna. Like Mr. Henthorn kept a tavern in the village of Etna, and it was in his bar room that the pioneers gathered to found the town. The tavern, a long two-story house, stood on the north side of the Pike, about 75 yards west of the main street leading to Pataskala. And the National Road provided jobs and income for the taverns, hotels, restaurants, and with the advent of the automobile service stations. The later US 40 bypass reduced traffic and resulted in the restaurants going out of business. Oh my. Etna's recent and current development as an industrial and distribution center will bring continuing prosperity and jobs for the surrounding communities. Yeah, it's great that it says that, because there were some factories I passed along the way here, including Amazon Fulfillment Center. So I guess that's what they mean. But here are some old photos of Etna, the Pike, Methodist Episcopal Church. Oh, would you look at that? There was once an auto museum here that existed for 5 years, but it closed in 1961. And then an old motor court, Shamrock Plaza. All right, I'm going to go ahead and take you to the next town, which is a little bit smaller. It's called Kirkersville. Come with me. Now I'm in the main drag of Kirkersville, and that is the Kirkersville United Methodist Church in front of me. And here are 2 markers and a mile marker. I'm not going to read the one about mile markers just yet, but I will read the one about Kirkersville. The impact of the interurban. As a small pike town on the National Road, Kirkersville experienced the evolution of transportation from the days of the horse and wagon to the automobile. It was the advent of the interurban that not only brought another mode of transit to the community, it brought electricity. At a time when a national power grid had not yet been established, production and distribution of electric power was often a local affair. In 1902, an interurban line was built through Kirkersville. Running on steel rails coursing down the middle of Main Street, or the National Road, the cars were powered by electricity supplied from overhead wires. The electricity came from generating stations specifically built to power the light rail cars. Kirkersville, as with other towns along the interurban routes, now had access to inexpensive and reliable electricity for lighting and other needs. So the interurban line ran for only 27 years, but during this time it provided dependable transportation services and convenient connections to towns and villages across Ohio and the Midwest. Eventually, the growing public preference for the automobile and the availability of electric power from other sources ended the reign of the interurbans. Here's one of the interurban train cars. This was in 1909, the picture. And then here's an early picture of Kirkersville. Notice how the road is all dirt, not paved. Now next to it is the mile markers one, and I believe it's the same exact one as you'll find in the one that I did the episode in Springfield, Ohio, where it talks about the importance of the mile markers. But there's a few of these all around the state, but there is one that's just right there, and I don't know if it's an original one or not, but there is some interesting information on here, such as like mile markers go back to the Roman Empire with stone obelisks, and these markers were actually 5 foot tall, but they were 2 feet deep into the ground and 3 feet up here. So let's see. Wheeling, West Virginia is 106 miles from here. Zanesville is 32. Cumberland, 236 miles. That's where the National Road originally started. And then Columbus, where I came from, is 21 miles. And I don't think there's anything on the back. So a few more tidbits about Kirkersville. Kirkersville has a population of 471 according to the 2020 census. It was named after one of Ohio's past governors, William C. Kirker, who plotted the town in 1832. And recently, as far back as 2017, this was unfortunately where a shooting and hostage crisis took place. But the town today is sitting quiet, but I'm going to go ahead and take you to Hebron, which is the last of the 3 I'm showing in this episode. So follow me. All right, now I'm in Hebron, Ohio. Population 2,326 according to the 2020 census, and there's a couple markers just close to each other. There's actually the Hebron historical marker that was put up by the Ohio National Road Association west of town, but I decided to skip it. But this has a lot of valuable information as well, and I like how there's a bench that just that's a first I've seen. But anyway, a little bit about the town of Hebron. Located at the crossing of the Ohio and Erie Canal and the National Road, Hebron was a favorite commercial and agricultural center for Licking County in the 19th century. Only 4 miles north of the city, Governor DeWitt Clinton of New York turned the first spadeful of dirt for the Ohio and Erie Canal on July 4th, 1825. The canal was completed through Hebron in 1828. Nearby Buckeye Lake served as a reservoir and feeder for the canal until 1894, when it was set aside for park purposes. The National Road was completed through Hebron in 1834. And it says the same on the back, but this was sponsored by Boy Scout Troop Number 27, the Citizens of Hebron, and the Ohio Historical Markers Committee, July 4th, 1960. Wow, so it's been up here for 60-some years. Dang. And next door is the site of the old Hebron Mill. I know the sun's a little bright. And I'm not lying, it just smells like cow manure. But hey, you know, this is why I love the country, you know. You get a little smell of the country, I guess. So I'm gonna take a look at that Hebron Mill marker real quick. And by the way, I know I said in the beginning of the video I was gonna visit 3 towns. I'm also gonna try and visit Atherton, which is an unincorporated community about 2 or 3 miles east of here, because I saw something on Google Maps that they got something related to the National Road there. But this is the site of where the Hebron Mill was. And of course, it was very valuable to the town. But there's 2 markers here, and this one I'm gonna focus on. And yeah, the building is open, but it's mostly like a complex of 2 or 3 different businesses. Like there's a real estate agency in there, and I don't think I'm gonna want to bother them. The village of Hebron lost its first mill to a fire in 1881. By the mid-1880s, a new mill took its place and continued in operation into the 1990s, making it the longest running business in Hebron. By 1891, the Hebron Mill converted from water power to a 35 horsepower engine to drive the milling processes. The mill relied upon the Ohio and Erie Canal and the National Road as transportation for shipping raw materials and finished products. The mill operated both as a grist and sawmill. And these are mostly just photos, and you know, they're all very lengthy, but here's the mill as how it appeared in 1907. Here's what it looked like on the inside, like all the floor plans. Like there's the elevators, the corn crackers, the water turbines. And then here is the Erie Canal. This little boat on there, how it typically looked in the 19th century. And while I'm here, I might as well check out the other marker. And you can tell, I mean, yeah, the building looks definitely retro. Even the doors, wooden doors. I mean, that's something you don't see every day, or I don't at least. And this was put up by the Greater Buckeye Lake Historical Society as well as the Ohio Bicentennial. So the Hebron Mill and Company building was built in 1880 where the National Trail or National Road, Route 40, and the Ohio Canal crossed in the village of Hebron. The building sat on the edge of the turning basin in the village, where canal boats docked to load or unload. In the basin, the canal boats could turn around for a return trip. Mr. William B. Bout built the building and operated as a flour and sawmill. He took young Davy Geiger in as a partner in 1891. He was with the mill for over 50 years. And then there's just a little bit more history. And then in 1975, the ownership of the mill passed to Nancy Voorhees Smith, and the operators of the mill were Don and Eugene Guttridge. And then finally in 2003, the building was purchased by Brazina Design and Construction Services, renovating the building for their offices. And there is a construction building here, but they call themselves Project Construction Company. But yeah, I mean, I think it's really cool that, or actually I take that back, here it is, there's a sign up here that says Hebron Milling, Brazina Design and Construction. Okay, huh. All right, well, I'm gonna breeze my way into Atherton. All right, so here is the part where everybody does not do the speed limit on the National Road as they're heading into Jackson. But I just hadn't come across this on Google Maps, and this was once a National Road station, as you can see. Now the railroad, I'm assuming it used to be that because, and I mean, it's a bike trail now. And I looked on Google Maps, and the bike trail does extend for a very long road. So I don't really know much history. I don't know what kind of railroad it was. I mean, I'll put it on the screen once I get it done. But the only thing I do know about this mystery, this National Road station, is this was built in 1885, and there is a sign on the side that says private property. So I'm assuming it belongs to the people that live just right over there, or maybe the county does, or the state, I don't know. But either way, I find this very interesting. So I just thought I'd show you this. There's no historical marker, obviously, but there's a mailbox here. Huh. All right, thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Historically Marked. Hope you learned a lot in this series of this National Road. I'll see you guys at the Eagle's Nest Monument. All right, I am Jason in Ohio, signing off.